Hey, welcome to Soundings with Sash. Thank you for joining me tonight. And if you're here with me, please put in the comments who you are, say hello, and where you're viewing from tonight. And if it's on replay, please put hashtag replay. And if you could share the stream, I would really appreciate it. I'm Sandy Archer. I'm Sandy Archer Spiritual Health. I am a spiritual wellness coach, and I'm here to navigate you to helping you through transition and to revealing your purpose. So, thanks for joining me. Say hi if you can. Tonight, I have a wonderful guest host with me, and we are going to be discussing a topic that all of us experience, and the topic is grief. So, we will be discussing that, and I'm going to bring her on right now. Hello. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello. Now, this is Heather Davis, and she will tell you about herself. And Heather, tell them a little bit about you.
Well, I am owner of a cleaning company for the last 10 years, Cinderella's Broom, here in Kansas City. I am currently working on getting certified for life coaching, so I'll be becoming a life coach.
Awesome.
And just working on different things, putting together things for, helping people reach their goals and get on track.
Okay, great. Wonderful. I think you know the person that's just said hello.
I do. Hi, Carla.
Hello. Hi, Carla. Thanks for joining us. If you've joined again, please put in the comments hello, and we'd like to know that you're here. And I know that this subject is a pretty general and broad subject since we all handle it differently. We've all experienced it differently. So, of course, it's unique to our own situations. So, okay. Well, we've got some fans going on here. Hi, Larry. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Larry. Up and look, somebody else you might know.
That's my oldest.
Hi, Caitlin. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Michael. Thanks for joining us from Portsmouth. And then, hi, Amy. Oh, I haven't missed you. It's nice to see you. Oh, hi, Tom. Thanks for joining us. Wow, thank you. You guys are just flooding in. I appreciate it. And if you could share the stream too, that would be awesome. And so we are talking about grief together. And there is a purpose because Heather and I, not only is she going to be a fellow life coach, but she is a fellow friend. And her and I have actually talked about this a lot because both of us have experienced similar, but not the same. Again, everybody's grief experience is unique to them and unique to the person. And grief can be many things. I'm not just talking about death grief. It can be grief in all forms. And they pretty much still follow 5, stages of grief. Oh, and then there's another that with death, there are 7 stages of grief. So, Heather, tell me, why was this subject important to you to discuss?
Really just because, like you said, with my mom passed away, but it started long before that. When I was 15, my cousin, who was like a year older than me, was like a brother, he was killed. So that was the first experience I had with it, which is a lot at 15 years old to, process through. 2001, my brother was 18, and he was killed in a car wreck. So processing through that I was, in my late 20s at that point. So a little bit more equipped, I think, than I was the first round. Then in 2008, my mom passed away from cancer. So I went through that with her. And again, just more mature, more tools to process through, the process of all the different steps.
Right. That's a lot from 15 and what was your age? 20?
Let's see. Probably, I think I was 27 when my brother passed.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So sorry. Okay, so Tom his wife is a death doula. I've just been reading a lot about death doulas. So thank you for sharing that, Tom. That's a unique gifting, I think, is when somebody has that can do that, can help families, transition through that. Um, and sometimes, of course, death can be a surprise, like you said, your cousin and your brother. But I think were you more equipped with your mother, or?
I don't know. I was definitely more equipped, but I think it's, when my brother was killed, it was so sudden and unexpected. And I said at the time, like, I think it would be easier if you knew, but it's not easier. It's just different.
Right.
They're still, in the end, they're gone, regardless of how it happened or whatever. My mom had cancer for 3 years, so we knew at some point. But I think it's just, faith, stronger faith, more mature, just life experiences. It makes it not necessarily easier, but better, more healthy ways of handling things.
Right. Right. So, so, um, so the 7 stages, of course, with a death loss, the first stage is disbelief and shock, and that is coming to grips with, what just happened, and we all, again, learning someone that you love is gone is difficult to believe it. You kind of you don't, you're like, no, that can't be true, kind of thing. And I know I've dealt with that too. And it's just a form of emotional protection. That's how we protect ourselves, is by going through that. And some people can, there's no time periods on this. This is what I think, the stages of grief, I think, are they they go, you don't go through them consecutively. Sometimes I think that we go through them sporadically throughout. So I'll just tell you what the 7 stages for a death loss is: disbelief and shock, denial, guilt and pain, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. And so those are the 7 stages. But again, I think that we experience those in different manners. I don't think we go through them, like I said, consecutively. And sometimes we go through them again. I think we get to the acceptance, and then something triggers us, and then we start to go through each of those stages once again. Yeah. So I mean, I know that I went through probably the guilt and pain piece, more often, maybe, depending on discussions, of the person that I lost. If I thought about conversation I wish I would have had. I've thought about, all of those things. Like, I wish I would have said this. I wish I could have done this. And I think those are the places that are difficult to, you might be at the acceptance, but maybe, there was some forgiveness that needs to happen there. Maybe you felt you wish could have told them that you forgave them, or that you wish they would forgive you. I think and that's not mentioned in here, but the guilt is, of course, that's part of that. And I think that we stay there a lot.
I think that was one thing with my mom being such a like, we had those conversations. Whereas with my brother, I had more regrets of, I should have gone to see him, or I should have, whatever. He was 18, so I couldn't have a lot of regrets, but there were some. And with my mom, we had all those conversations over 3 years. So I didn't have a lot of guilt at that point with her.
Right.
But yeah, definitely. And it's different for everyone. Everyone has to stay and how long, and
right.
It's different.
Right. And again, we'll talk about these different stages, but how you handle that. Like, when somebody else has a loss, I have an awkwardness about me. Like, I don't know what to say exactly. All I can say is love you. I mean, I kind of like put a general, love you, hugs, that kind of thing. But I really don't know what to say. And I don't think that there is the perfect thing to say to someone. I don't think anything.
I don't think so. And I saw a quote earlier that said, suffering gives you an insight into other people's suffering. And I think that's the thing, is once you've been through it, nothing I say is going to make it better. And I think the thing I hate the most is when people say, oh, it'll get easier. It doesn't get easier. It gets different.
Right.
Because, you're great for 3 years, and all of a sudden on year number 4, something pops in your head and you're a mess again. And you're like, and then people, well, you should be over it by now. You don't really ever get over it.
Right. Right.
So I think the whole time heals thing needs to be, yes, it does some, but they're never coming back. So you don't get over that.
Right. And you and I discussed earlier, I had watched Nora McInerney's TED Talk, and she talks about that, about when people say, well, you need to move on. When people tell you, okay, they try to console you and say, okay, now it's time for you to move on. Things will get better, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not helpful at that time, and it's not. And what she says, is you move forward. Right. You transition with that person, with that loss. You gain some experience, in it. And it's okay to talk about the person. It's okay to take them with you in that. I read a quote earlier that said, it is okay to start to feel happy again. Honor your loss by mourning in a season, but dancing in the next one. Right. And that's what I liked about that is kind of like, you can transition, but you're taking that loss with you, and I'm just talking about a death loss, right. But there's lots of losses that we experience. I mean, right. I remember my very first job loss, like I was let go from something, a job, and that was probably my first job loss, and I felt the same exact stages of disbelief and shock, and I was in denial, then I was angry. The anger part, I don't know if I stay there as long, but it just depends on your personality. I think I did. What are you angry? Who are you angry at? And that's the question.
Yeah, that's the question. Right. For me, I was angry at God for quite a while. Like, you took my brother, now you took my mom. Like, I was angry for a lot. I went back there a lot. And right. Then I think maybe I didn't stay there long, which is why I kept going back there. I wasn't necessarily finishing that part of it.
Right.
But I was angry. I was angry a lot with my mom.
Right.
With my brother, I don't know that anger was what I was so much as it was really hard watching my mom go through the grieving process while I was.
Right. Right.
So, I learned a lot. My mom was amazing to that process. My stepdad chose a different route. He got into drugs and drinking and, whatever. And, my mom just really went to counseling and got through it a very healthy way. But I know that her faith played a big part of that, and mine has too,
Right.
So.
Right.
Just knowing that there's a reason. I may not know the answer, but there is a reason. Someday I'll know. Right. But, it's really just trying not to stay in the, feel the emotions, but don't get stuck there.
Right. And what you brought up about getting counseling, I totally think, and, on this show, we always talk about that, really doing the healthy things, going in and, I'm drinking it, mugs up and, toast up there. 'Cause, I always do that, but, not turning to this, as a coping mechanism, figuring out how to cope through that, because I don't think this it might temporarily help you, but it's not going to help you long run. So, getting the counseling, going to a counselor or going to a pastor, preacher, father, whatever you need to do to get through, that time period. But, if you're struggling there, sometimes you need to just sit with stuff. Sometimes we need to process stuff and not do anything, right? Maybe we need to just sit and stay in the present and actually just experience those emotions. One, not, try to shove them away, not oppress them, repress them, because if you do, those will come up later. I mean, you haven't gotten rid of them, though you have temporarily in the moment, but you definitely need to seek out sometimes, some type of help. Yes, when we are angry with God, we are angry with us. God is within you. well, yes, but we have to blame, when this happens sometimes, we all have different losses. So we all have different circumstances as to why. Yep, how to cope. Turning suffering into triumph. Be still and know. That's right. That's how I feel about it. It's being still and dealing with it. I didn't know, sometimes you don't know that you're not dealing with something. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, sometimes we think we're dealing well with it and we put the face on, we put the smile on, we put on, you know, we're like, we're fine, we're fine, we're fine. And then one day we're not fine.
Right.
And so that is the thing, is that if you're sailing through something too smoothly, then you're not dealing with it and you
Right.
need to get real. So you need to get real with somebody. So
Right.
if that means reaching out, like I said, to family member, to, whoever you need to reach out to, but, don't keep it in here and just to yourself. Or, my coping mechanism goes back to my faith. So I talk to, I do that unless I was mad at him, like you were talking about being angry. Who am I going to talk to if I'm angry at God? I'm not going to talk to him at the moment. So seeking help, with others, with other people,
Right.
really telling them how you feel. I mean, sometimes we just bottle up and go, I can handle this. I'm strong, I can do this. But it's just so important that we be real about that and authentic and try to help, seek out someone to be your confidant, someone to talk to, because as part of the grief stages, depression is one of them. And you're going to get depressed, and if you don't even know what depression is, all of a sudden you're just down. I had a form of depression with my mother. I had taken some clothes, of hers, and brought them back home, and I put them at the end of my bed. And I didn't realize that that was a depression thing that I was going through, but I wouldn't unpack them.
Well, I
I
had.
kept them there as like and it, like, it was like 2 months. Like, I didn't touch them, I didn't wear them, I didn't whatever. I just left them there, because I hadn't handled it as
Right.
well as I thought.
Well, I did the same thing with my mom. We took on all of her. We sold some of her stuff, but like furniture and paintings. And one day it was like 3 or 4 years later, and I was like, I don't even like this stuff. Why am I still holding on to it? On my walls or whatever. I mean, I've got the one chair that I still have of hers that I sat in when she was sick. Everything else is pretty much gone.
Yeah.
You hold on to stuff that you don't even really. It's like you think it's them, but it's really not. And
Yeah.
um, it's just part of the process.
Like you just said, it's not them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is you're like, this thing is theirs, but you're right, it's not them. It's not them. But I wanted to keep this up because Christina, she wrote a quote out, and I really like it. Thank you, Christina, for joining and for sharing. And so I left it up there so you all could read it. But yeah, but it's out of the blue, it'll flare to life. That's right. That's right. I mean, there'll be triggers for me every once in a while, and that's okay. That's where you need to just like embrace that at the moment and go, okay, I have to deal with this right now, you know, and not push it aside, and not, because we are all going to go through that. We're all, we all go through these stages of grief. What was the hardest for you to deal with? Which of these stages that I talked about?
I mean, I think for me, I don't think I really went through the denial for very long with
Mm-hmm.
any of them. Like I said, anger was a big one for me. I think there was some depression for sure. Um, I think that between my brother and my mom, the stages were less. I think there wasn't that as much. Again, I think it was just being there before, knowing that okay, I've done this before. I'm going to survive. I'll come out of it, whatever. just having more tools. But I think the anger for me was probably the hardest to deal with, because it is that, like, what am I angry at? Who am I angry at? Like, you don't necessarily have all the answers to why you're feeling that way. Right. So I think that was probably the hardest. To go back to something you said about that person and keeping their memory alive, that's something that we've been very, very conscious of with my kids, with my girls. Mm-hmm. My youngest wasn't born yet when my brother passed. My oldest was one, almost two. She feels like I think she knew him, and I think Kelsey does too, because we just talk about him so much. She's kind of everywhere. Same with my mom, because I don't want them to not feel like they have no idea who this person was. So I think that's important. It's, some people think that you shouldn't talk about it, or, oh, we can't say their name because it's sad or whatever. And I think that's, at least for us, and I can't speak for everyone, I don't think that would have worked for us. I just don't. And I think that, another thing is, I know a lot of people that I talk to that have lost their kids, or they feel guilty if they're happy.
Right.
It's like, oh, I shouldn't feel happy because they just passed. Well, my mom doesn't want me not to be happy. She wants me to live my best life and my kids to be happy. So if we were all sitting around and I think you and I have had this conversation about Christmas, us to just hate Christmas. She would never want that, but we kind of do. We're working on it still. It's a process, but I guess I should say my mom passed on Christmas morning. So, we still, it's not our favorite time of year, but we know that she wouldn't want us to just sit around and cry all day. So we don't.
Right. I like what you said. Moving on doesn't mean letting go. And that's right. That's right. Yeah. Hi, Grace.
Hi, Grace.
Thanks for joining us. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's hard for me around Thanksgiving. So, right. We've talked about that because mine is Thanksgiving. So my mom passed right before Thanksgiving. And, I think a mother I don't know, if the mother kind of was different for me. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why the mother loss is different, but it is. And I've not lost a child or anything like that. And my heart goes out to all of those people that have lost a child and a spouse and that kind of thing. And I know holidays can be difficult. Like you're saying, the holidays probably are the times that we probably go through those stages again, and again, like you said, it's not like we don't just get over it. Time doesn't just, we still deal with it. And as long as we're doing it healthily, not having to turn to, substances or anything to cope with it, but, doing something nice in the memory or anything. I think a lot of people have traditions like that, where they keep the place, a place for them at the table, kind of like, I watched The Chosen the other day, and they did that, in the Jewish tradition, they do that for, in Passover, they do it for Elijah. Right. So, I mean, those you can do those types of things to make it feel a little more comforting, I think, and that's also something else I wanted to bring up about your faith. Having a foundation of faith, I think, is very paramount to how you deal with grief and what, if you're very confused and don't know what happens after that someone leaves and transitions to the next place. I think that's where people struggle, depending on where their faith comes from, and a lot of people will mention, going to heaven. Well, it depends on where your faith is, and if you even know that there's a heaven,
Right.
So, when I was looking up grief and scriptures on grief, of course, the first losses, is Job. Job probably experienced the most loss in the Bible as far as everything. He had lots of grief, but what did he do? He kept looking, he got angry, and then he was like, nope, I'm not, I still, have, I still give thanks. And that's exactly what Tom was right on time with that gratitude.
Right.
And I meant to, I'm sorry, Grace, I'm going to put your comment up there in a second, but gratitude is foundational. Yeah. To understand the grieving process. It puts focus on the positive, being grateful. I mean, I agree with you, Tom. And it doesn't get better, it just gets easier. That's right. And so, I mean, this topic, I mean, we all experience it and we all experience in different ways, but I just feel like as long as you have that foundation of who you can turn to and what you can turn to as far as your foundation, I think that's what will help you get through it.
Yeah.
And there's many talk about grief in Psalms. So Psalms has just a plethora of different scriptures that we can go through. And the first one is Psalm 34, 18 to 19. And this is the Passion Translation. The Lord is close to all those whose hearts are crushed by pain, and he is always ready to restore the repentant one. Even when bad things happen to the good and godly ones, the Lord will save them and not let them be defeated by what they face. Now that's the Passion Translation, which of course we know he binds up the wounds of the brokenhearted is really that same scripture. But you know that is, who are we turning to help us, in that time of need? Because when you're at home and you're grieving, you know I to turn to a friend, it's 2 a.m. Do you call your friend, or
It's
can
a
you
super
call
friend.
your creator? And
Right.
he can help give you that peace. And so, I mean, that's how I get through it. I mean, what about you?
Well, I think that was I've often said I don't know how people get through it without faith because I just well I do. My stepdad, he drank and did drugs and whatever to numb. Um, but I think that there's just so many tools. Journaling, with my cousin, I wrote poetry about him and the situation. Journaling obviously is always for me a great outlet. Um, I think that being surrounded. The thing is that when someone passes, everybody gathers around the week between or however long between the passing and the funeral, and maybe a week after. But when you really need to be there for people is
After.
later down the road when life goes back to normal and they're having to try to figure out how to
Right.
function.
Right.
And when they feel alone and that person's gone, that's when people are needed the most. And I think lean on people that you know um, can help you. That actually care enough to listen and don't say things like, "Well, it'll be fine. You'll get over it." Those things
Right.
don't help. But, I saw a quote earlier that said, "Love and grief are a package deal," and so that was kind of deep for me in the sense that it's something we're all going to go through at some point, and um, you have to kind of, even if you haven't been there, try to imagine what it would be like. And sometimes they don't need you to say anything; just listen and let them feel comfortable, with the feelings that they're feeling.
Right.
And like I said, everyone handles it differently. If you've never been through it, it's hard to understand what it's like. But
Right.
just be kind and compassionate.
Right. Because you can't fix it. I mean, you can't
No.
fix it. And Christina just had that quote up there about to recover the you that went away with them. And I like that, but at the same time, I almost feel like those people are in my heart too. Like I still feel a piece of them is with me.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
that they are, there's a piece of them, and how, they've impacted my life. I've had many friends and, family that have passed, not just my mom, obviously,
Right.
but grandparents, all the way. And I feel like I have to go on as to share pieces of them, to show, other people the love that I received even from them. I mean, I think that's the thing. And we want to leave a legacy of who we were, the stamp on the world. So, what are you leaving? What piece of of you are you leaving? I want people to rejoice. I want, I think about those things, which is, probably silly, but we should think about those things, even in grief.
Right.
I think the hardest part that I dealt with was going to the funeral home. I remember that was when I dealt with anger, which is a terrible time to deal with anger, is at the funeral home.
Yeah.
But I dealt with anger at that day, and poor person that was there, but I was angry that I had to pay for my grief in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like I had some angry. I mean, I'm just sharing that because that was just something that happened in my story. But we all deal with those things differently, and so that's why it's also important. I know it's a weird thing to talk about, but it's why it's important that you make preparation for those things, for your family, for you, for if that happens to you. I think it's so important that people, don't realize that when they don't take care of that piece of the puzzle, how hard it is for the family members to deal not only with the loss of you, but now they're having to deal with all the other stuff that's entails that. So that's not a plug for anybody to go get their will.
Insurance.
Yeah. I'm not plugging anybody's insurance or will, but I know there's some ladies on here. Legal Shield is a thing that I just signed up for to do my will. And, it's important. It's an important piece. Life insurance. Yes. I mean, having all of that together is actually something caring to do for your family. It just is. So, let's see. Michael says anger is easier to handle than grief. Yeah, it's easier to get angry about it, I guess, if you're not wanting to, be sad. Some people, when they are sad, they are angry. I used to do the opposite, though. I used to smile and laugh even when I was sad. So I did the opposite. A lot of times in my family, at the funeral home, you'll hear everybody laughing the whole time, and you're going, "What is wrong with those people?" Like, what are
That's
they
how we
doing?
were. It was like my brother's funeral, and we're all sitting around and we're laughing. And my mom was like, "People probably think we're crazy."
Right.
But that's just how we deal with stuff in our family. Otherwise, I think we go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think families handle it differently. When I was growing up, I know that we had to be very reverent when we went into a funeral home. We couldn't talk, actually. We had to be very quiet and, whisper and the whole deal. So, then later on, as our family members, I mean, we're just like in there laughing, making jokes, and the whole deal. I think that's how you have to handle it. I think we do handle it with humor sometimes.
Inappropriate laughter.
Inappropriate, right? And people sit back and go, "Oh, that was so wrong." And it's like, no, I think your family member would be fine with that.
Right.
Me personally, I do want everyone to laugh, and they always say, "Have a party for me," and I have a party for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm going to be celebrating,
right?
Because of my foundational faith is that I feel like I'm going to be going to heaven, which, I hope I don't know where the wood is to knock on, but anyway, so, it's kind of like one of those things. I hope that my kids look at this YouTube at one time and remember this, I know it's a morbid thing to talk about sometimes, but grief is what we all have to handle. If you don't talk about it and bring it into the open, when it happens to you, your family members will be lost. I mean, they'll have no idea, how you felt, and that they won't know how to handle it. They won't know how to cope with it.
Yeah.
Because, I tell my boys stuff like that all the time, and they're like, "Why are you talking to us about me?" And I'm like, "Well, because it's part of life. It is part of life. 100% of us, like Nora in her TED Talk says, 100% of us are gonna die. She's like, everybody out there, 100% of us, we're all gonna die at some point.
Exactly. It's a guarantee.
Yes. And so but what I don't want to focus on dying, I want to focus on living, right?
Exactly.
So how are we going to focus on living with the losses, with our loved ones gone? We have to continue living. You have to keep going. And the reason that you have to keep going is for the other people around you. I mean, I know
the person that passes, their legacy's done. But if you just stop living, then now your legacy's done.
Yeah.
I think about all the things had I just, shut down and went into a shell when either of the events happened, how much I would not have accomplished.
Right.
So I have to worry about what my legacy is. What am I leaving behind? At my funeral, what are people going to stand up and talk about? That was a big thing at my mom's funeral. The things that were said, I was like, oh, please don't let this be like people get up and say something different, So that's kind of what I've been working on. It's just like I want to have a better legacy than before me.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with you. What are you doing? We're talking about grief and we're talking about the healthy ways to handle it. But let's talk about the healthy ways to live too. What are the healthy ways? And Tom already brought it up, gratitude for your life, and gratitude for the people in your life, and gratitude for the breath you take and anything you eat and drink. Gratitude goes far. If you're not grateful, grief is going to be much harder for you. Grief will slam you at that point because you'll think things are not fair.
Right.
And so when you lose somebody, yeah, they're not.
And everything, you have to have the mindset of everything you go through makes you stronger. So, it's a journey, and I wouldn't be your friend's barking.
Yes, my friend. I know. I miss your dogs.
I wouldn't be where I am today had I not gone through the things I've gone through. So you can't really have a negative thought process if you want to be where you're at.
And that's perfect what you're saying. Every loss, it builds you into who you are. Every grief of anything, it helps to propel you actually into something different, transition you into something that you could be better actually. I look at those losses, I do. I miss my mom all the time. I wish I had her wisdom. But what's awesome is like God will send me a spiritual mother into my path. He'll send me somebody to say something to me that I know that she would have said. And sometimes I actually hear her voice, in my own head, telling me, what I should do, because it is something she would have said. I know so, I mean, it's all in how you cope with it and doing the healthy things that you need to do. And acceptance, that comes at some time. There's no time span on the acceptance. And like I stated earlier, you're going to go through that. You're still going to go through the grieving stages again. Like you could have been to the acceptance part and then bam, you're back to disbelief and shock. Right. I mean, it doesn't, there's no time period, and there's no, everybody does it different. And give yourself grace on that. Give yourself a break on that. Anybody saying you should have moved on from this, shame on them for saying that.
And I think that I used to try to, compare, I guess, not probably a great word, but this person's loss for like a spouse or a child, to me, I'm sorry, but I think that losing a child would be the ultimate, I can't imagine. But I've also never lost a spouse. So I don't know. I don't think any of them are easier or,
I don't think any are easier.
But I think just understanding that if I haven't lost a spouse, but I've lost a death and say, oh, I get it. No, I don't get it if it's your child or if it's, a spouse. I haven't gone through that. But again, just having the compassion to, sometimes I'll even say, I'm probably going to say the wrong thing here, and I mean no offense to it, and then say whatever, and then I'm just trying to comfort you, and sometimes just say I want to comfort you. What can I do? What do you need from me? Instead of just trying to fix it,
Right.
It's not fixable. But I think I should have had more grace with myself at times, and gone through the process a little slower instead of saying, "Oh, I've been here and done that. I've got this." I've done this twice now, or more than that if you count grandparents and aunts and uncles, whatever.
Right.
But at some point, it's been actually funny. It's that now that when I've lost grandparents after the others, it is easier because you expect your grandparents are going to die at some point. They're old.
Yeah.
You don't expect your 18-year-old or your 7-year-old or your whatever. So it is different, but I mean, they're still gone.
Right.
In the end.
Well, and I think that comes back to really, having those people in your life and being grateful for them, and when I talk about grief, sometimes we grieve relationships. And I know that there are a lot of relationships, I think sometimes it's harder to grieve a person that's living than dead, actually.
I would agree with that.
It's harder to know that there's somebody out there that you could talk to, that you can't talk to, that you're estranged with, or I think that can actually take a big toll, on your living, because at least somebody that's passed, that they're gone, and
it's final.
But somebody that's still here and you're estranged from, I think can be a really difficult place to be, and you're still going to go through these same stages is really what you're going to do. So maybe sometimes you can't fix that either.
No.
Sometimes it's the other person, and it doesn't matter if you want them to forgive you or you need to forgive them. Sometimes those people are gone out of your life, and so you're still going to grieve them the same. So
well, I agree with that. I am estranged from my dad, and I think it is different because he's gone, but he's not gone. So it's a different grieving process.
Right.
I think you and I talked about during COVID, we were grieving life.
Yes, we were grieving, and some are still. Thank you, Caitlin. Some are still grieving that. I mean, we are still grieving that. We are still grieving. We're grieving a world that we used to have, even, right? So,
right.
I mean, grief, it comes in so many different ways, and I know that during our time, I can't believe we've already almost been an hour talking about this, but death grieving is one thing, but grieving, like I said, people that are alive, and grieving people, that you just no longer have a relationship with, grieving relationships, divorces. I've experienced that, and that can be a hard to do as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm at a place healthily where it's like I do the gratitude thing. I was grateful for the lessons that I learned in it.
Right.
And then I have to have some forgiveness. I'm coming at it with a forgiveness eyes, whether it was me or them, doesn't matter, having some forgiveness there, and moving forward. And I'm grateful for the lesson. I'm grateful.
I think that, this just kind of popped in my head when you were talking about forgiveness. If there's someone out there that someone passed away and they were not speaking, forgive yourself, because the forgiveness isn't about the other person.
Right.
The forgiveness is about you. So, you can't live the rest of your life with regrets or whatever. So give yourself that forgiveness so that you're not stuck in that spot, because they're gone. They can't change their part of it.
Right. And we can't ever know what anybody else was thinking. Like, we
No.
can't ever know what they were thinking. They can't know what we were thinking. Maybe you wanted to talk to that person, and maybe they wanted to talk to you, but some strongholds were in place that didn't happen, and that's where forgiveness has to kind of come in. Even if it doesn't always work out, but like you're saying, give yourself the grace, let yourself off the hook, because
Yeah.
at some point it's not your fault that they're not forgiving you. You just have to kind of try to move forward from that. you
Yeah.
know and I think we all have went through things like that. I have several friends that are no longer in my life that I grieve. I grieve those times with them, or I grieve that friendship. But you know it, it's still the same process. Again, you're going to feel anger, you might get depressed over it, but when acceptance comes, that it will come. But as long as you know that, okay, this is not the end of that you might get triggered and you might go through that process again. And
Well,
just
and
being
find something that you can do that you did to get with that person, whether it's cooking or painting or, whatever, gardening, golf, whatever the thing is that you
right.
did. With my brother, we golfed a lot. And for the first, I don't know how many years, I wouldn't play golf because it just made me think of him. And then one day I was like, he wouldn't want me to quit doing this because it was something we did together. So I went out and made my way through the whole thing until I, cried. The guys behind us probably thought, why is this woman crying over a golf game? But once I
Aw,
got through it, then I can enjoy it again. So,
yeah,
don't start living life because it's too painful. Eventually you'll get through it.
right, right, yeah. So thank you for um, definitely all of your words. And is if anybody wants to share anything, and any experience that they've had with grief and how they got over it, because sometimes, again, it's not all cookie cutter. We're all unique people. It's not going to be the same for everyone. It's absolutely going to be different for everyone. But the thing that is the same is what your foundation is. If you have a good faith foundation, if you have a good mental health foundation of reaching out to who you need to reach out to when you're going into that dark place,
Right.
um, denying that you ever go to that dark place is not helpful either.
No.
That's not helpful.
And if you don't go to that place at some point, you need to check in with yourself because, that's a problem too.
It is. It is. I think people, when they're not authentic with their emotions, if they just keep on just getting distracted, that was one of my coping mechanisms. I would do escapism and distraction to get away from the emotion.
Well,
And
it's going
so,
to come up at some point, so you might as well deal with it right out of the gate. It's
yeah,
better than 20 years down the road when all of a sudden you go, oh wow, I never dealt with
right.
that. Here we are, So I just ride the wave.
I just watched a movie like that, called The Starling. Have you seen that? It has Melissa McCarthy in it. Um, and it's about and it's about grief. It actually is about grief. So I don't know if you guys can look at, I think it's on Netflix right now. It's called The Starling. And you expect her, she's a comedian usually, like in a funny role, but this is actually a serious role for her. So look that movie up, because I thought it was very she wasn't dealing with it. She was just acting like she was okay. And then the husband was the opposite, and he went into a depression and he had to go to a place. So,
Yeah.
they both dealt with it so differently. One's going to, deal with it, but it was because he didn't deal with other things before that. And that's why he, did that. And then she was just avoiding it, avoiding the situation. So, I mean, that's a good movie to look up. If you're in a good headspace to watch it and emotional space to watch it, because again, it could trigger you. So just warning, it could be a trigger movie. But because they lost a child. So it's one of those things that, you know, you are going to have to deal with it sometime. Like, you are not going to escape the emotions of it. So it's better to kind of get it over with, like you were saying, but don't push yourself too fast. Like you said that as well. Don't try to go through it and go, okay, here's the stages here. Okay, I'm going to give myself 1 month for this stage, 1 month for there's no time period in grieving. Mourn as long as you need to.
Yeah.
As long as it is in a healthy way,
As long
as
as you're
long as
moving
you
forward.
are checking in with yourself, and I'm not talking about, because, we all can put that fake smile on, while we're going through it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I'm just
Right.
saying, make sure that you yourself know, when you're going into that dark place, not just, that you know how to get out of it, that you know
Right.
who to go to and what to do in that
Yeah.
place.
And don't
You
be afraid
know,
to ask for help.
asking for help is huge. Just even a friend. You don't have to have a licensed counselor, but somebody that will listen,
Yeah.
somebody that will be there for you.
Yeah. And if you know someone that's been through it, don't be afraid to ask them for help. The worst that they can say is no, but chances are they know what you're going through, so they'll help you.
That's right. That's
Even if
right.
it's just like I said, just listening.
That's right. And I know that life coaches aren't generally the doing that for you. Life coaches are kind of helping you through a transition, probably after you've gone through that, after you've gotten
Right.
some professional help.
Yeah.
Usually life coaches are going to help you to recognize if you do need help. And then they're going to refer you to a resource. Just to let you know, I'm not trying to promote my own business here, because actually that's not the role of a life coach. Really, a life coach is to actually help you go forward. If you find yourself in that place and you're stuck, you
Right.
know, what can you do to get unstuck?
Yeah.
A life coach can help you to give you a plan, but they're going to refer you out to professionals to try to get that. And if you have that faith and you have pastors that are good, that you trust, and that you want to go to get some Christian counseling, I think that's a great place as well. Um, but just don't do it alone. You
Right.
know, we, I mean, we were made for community. We were made for connection. When we were created, that's what we're created for. So
Right.
don't do it alone. You do have other people out there, even if you think you don't, you
Right.
probably do. You just haven't called on them, you know? So
Yeah.
reach out if you need to. Definitely reach out to me if you need to. And Heather, she's just getting going. You can reach out to her as well. So, and Heather, do you want to mention your other business or?
Yeah. I mean, if you're in Kansas City and you need your house cleaned or your business cleaned, look up Cinderella's Broom.
Cinderella's Broom. Yep. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you discussing this with me tonight. We have 7 more minutes. I'm not rushing us, but
I mean, it only took a year, 2 years. How long have you been asking me to do this?
Oh, a long time. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. She finally did it. Yay, she's on camera. Anyway. I appreciate you, Heather. I miss you
I miss
bunches.
you.
I mean, the Chiefs games are not the same at all.
Without my
Me watching them in my living room is so not the same.
We'll have to Zoom one day during a game.
Yes, please do. Please do. Sorry, go Chiefs. Anyway. And mugs up one more time. And I know this was a heavy subject, and I really appreciate you for your first time to come on about this subject. Was very brave and it was very good. And you are the only one that I would want to talk to it about it
Thank
with.
you.
So just to let you know. So I hope that you guys, look up these 7 stages of grief if you need to. Reach out to somebody professional if you need to. And also in the Bible, Psalms is full of really, really helps you through grief, because King David, he obviously went through a lot of it. because he talks about it a lot in all of his stories. And anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. And thank you. I appreciate you, my fellow sister in Christ, and thank you guys all for watching. I really appreciate you this evening. So have a wonderful evening. Again, if you need any help or any resources, I'm sure either one of us can point you in the right direction. So if you watch this on a replay, put #replay in it and share it out to your friends, and we appreciate it. And we will see you the next time, and peace out. You got to do it finally. Yay! So I'm going to do my thing.